Ladies and gentlemen, today we explore a concept that might feel uncomfortable at first glance: make them suffer your absence. At its core, this idea is not one of cruelty or malice, but one of profound self-awareness and growth. It is the realization that there are times when stepping away is the most transformative act, not only for ourselves, but for others as well. In our fast-paced, ever-demanding world, we often find ourselves tethered to the needs, expectations, and emotional demands of those around us. We rush to fill roles, to be present, to support, to give. But what if the greatest gift we could offer others and ourselves is our absence? What if, by stepping away, we make a deeper impact than we could ever hope to make by staying? First, let's consider the power of individuation, the journey of becoming whole, of integrating every aspect of our being. Each of us is a unique individual with our own desires, thoughts, and unconscious shadows. But so often we allow ourselves to be shaped by the expectations of others, losing touch with who we truly are. When we withdraw, when we make them suffer our absence, we create the space necessary for self-discovery. Our absence becomes a mirror, forcing both us and those around us to reflect on the parts of ourselves we have neglected. It is in these moments of solitude that we can confront our deepest fears, our desires, our shadows. Through this process of individuation, we not only reclaim our authentic selves, but invite others to do the same. When we leave, we don't just disappear. We create the conditions for their growth as well. They are forced to ask themselves, who am I without this person? What am I missing in myself? Second, absence can serve as a catalyst for transformation, much like the hero's journey. In myth, the hero must leave behind the familiar world to embark on a journey into the unknown. This absence is not merely physical, it represents a psychological shift. The hero's departure signifies a break with the past, a step into a new realm where growth and change are inevitable. When you step away, you allow others to face a similar transformation. Your absence leaves a void that cannot easily be filled. This absence you're leaving forces others to confront what they once relied upon, to examine what they took for granted. It is not an act of vengeance, it is an act of enabling growth, both for you and for them. Just as the hero must face trials alone to grow, so must others face their own trials in your absence. It is in this space of absence that transformation happens. You allow them to face their own dependency, their own need, and in doing so, you free them to grow and evolve beyond it. Finally, consider the unconscious influence of your presence. We are all interconnected, not just in the physical sense, but also in the depths of the collective unconscious. Our presence affects those around us in ways we may never fully understand. And yet, it is often in the absence of that presence that the deepest revelations occur. When you withdraw, you make others aware of your imprint on their psyche, the ways in which they may have depended on you, projected their desires onto you, or sought comfort in your presence. The impact of your absence makes them confront the hidden aspects of their own selves. They are forced to reckon with what you represented for them, whether that be comfort, security, or even conflict. Your absence reveals the unresolved emotions, the fears, and the longings they may have buried. And so, to make them suffer your absence is not an act of punishment. Rather, it is an invitation to both you and them to face the unknown. It is a call to delve deeper into the unconscious, to challenge the narratives that have bound us, and to embrace the journey of becoming whole. Absence, in its truest sense, holds within it the profound potential to catalyze self-discovery and growth. The act of withdrawing, whether momentarily or permanently, creates the space necessary for individuation, the journey toward the realization of the self in its fullest, most authentic form. In the noise and complexity of modern life, we often find ourselves entangled in the demands of others, the expectations placed upon us, and the roles we play in the lives of those around us. We exist in a constant state of adaptation, morphing into versions of ourselves that fit the needs of the moment, without ever truly confronting who we are beneath those layers. Our sense of identity becomes shaped not just by our inner world, but by the outer demands of society, family, friends, and colleagues. We may lose touch with our true selves, becoming so entangled in the narratives others have created for us that we forget to listen to our own inner voice. Individuation is a journey of reclaiming that inner voice. It is the process of becoming the person we are meant to be, the person who exists beyond the expectations of others, beyond the social rules we have been assigned. But this process is not always easy. It requires introspection, confrontation with our shadows, and a willingness to face the parts of ourselves we may have been avoiding. The discomfort of this journey often leads us to seek external validation, to lean on others for reassurance and support. But when we do this, we run the risk of becoming enmeshed in their needs, their projections, and their desires. Our sense of self becomes diluted, shaped by the world around us rather than our own inner truth. It is in the act of absence that we create the conditions necessary for individuation. When we withdraw, we force ourselves and others to reckon with the absence of the familiar. Absence creates a space, a void, where our true selves can emerge. This absence is not just physical, but psychological, emotional, and spiritual. When we step away from the expectations and demands of others, we create the necessary conditions for self-reflection. In the silence of our absence, we are left alone with our thoughts, our feelings, and our desires. We are no longer distracted by the noise of the outside world, and we are forced to confront the parts of ourselves we may have neglected. It is in this silence that we can begin to hear the whisper of our true self, the voice that has been drowned out by the demands of others. This process of self-discovery through absence is not always comfortable. It requires courage to face the parts of ourselves that we may have ignored or repressed, our shadows, the parts of ourselves that we find difficult to accept, emerge in the absence of the familiar. These shadows may take the form of fears, insecurities, desires, or traits we have been conditioned to hide from the world. When we withdraw, we are forced to look at these aspects of ourselves, to confront them head on, rather than avoid them. It is only through this confrontation that we can integrate these shadow aspects into our conscious selves, creating a more complete and authentic version of who we are. In the absence of external validation, we must turn inward. We must learn to validate ourselves, to trust our own judgment, and to listen to our own inner wisdom. This is a crucial step in the process of individuation. As we detach from the need for approval from others, we begin to strengthen our own sense of self-worth. We no longer rely on the opinions of others to define who we are. Instead, we develop an inner compass that guides us toward the person we are meant to be. This process of self-degradation is empowering. It allows us to step into our authentic selves, free from the influence of external forces. However, absence is not a one-sided experience. While we may withdraw from the world, our absence also has an impact on those around us. It creates a space for others to confront their own emotions and projections. Often people rely on our presence to fill emotional voids in their own lives. We may become the source of their comfort, security, or validation. But when we remove ourselves from the equation, we force them to confront their own feelings of dependence, need, and attachment. They are no longer able to lean on us for reassurance, and in doing so, they are given the opportunity opportunity to face their own emotional growth. Just as we may have become enmeshed in the needs of others, they too may have become dependent on our presence. Our absence shakes this dependency, creating a void that they must fill on their own. It is in this space of absence that they are forced to confront their own emotional needs and to develop their own sense of self-reliance. The absence we create acts as a mirror, reflecting the ways in which they have projected their desires, fears and insecurities onto us. It allows them to examine the roles they have assigned to us and to confront the ways in which they have relied on us to fulfill and met needs within themselves. In this way, our absence can serve as a catalyst for their own self-discovery. At the same time, it is important to acknowledge that our absence does not guarantee that others will embark on a journey of self-reflection. They may resist the discomfort of facing their own emotional voice and attempt to fill the space we have left with distractions, denial, or avoidance. But this resistance is also part of the process. The void we create may not be immediately understood, and others may react with confusion, anger, or even resentment. Yet, in the long term, this absence serves as a reminder of the power of our own individuality. It challenges others to look within themselves and to question their emotional dependencies. Just as we must confront our own shadows in the absence of the familiar, so too must others confront their own. The act of absence is ultimately an act of empowerment. It is a declaration of independence from the emotional dependencies of others. When we step away from the roles we have been assigned, we reclaim our autonomy. We are no longer defined by the needs and expectations of others. Instead, we define ourselves. It is only when we are able to stand on our own, free from the expectations of others, that we can truly connect with others on a deeper level. Our absence then becomes a necessary precursor to a more authentic and meaningful presence in the world. Moreover, absence allows us to break free from the patterns of codependency that often characterize our relationships. In a codependent relationship, both parties become enmeshed in each other's emotional needs, often at the expense of their own individual growth. By withdrawing, we disrupt these patterns and create a space for both ourselves and others to grow independently. This is not to say that relationships are not important or meaningful, but rather that they should not come at the expense of our own individuation. True connection with others can only occur when both individuals are able to stand firmly in their own sense of self, independent of each other's emotional needs. In this way, absence is not an act of abandonment, but an act of love. It is an invitation for both ourselves and others to step into our full potential, to face the shadows within, and to grow beyond the limitations of our current selves. By making them suffer our absence, we allow them to confront the aspects of themselves that they may have been avoiding. We give them the opportunity to become more fully themselves, just as we are giving the opportunity to do the same. Ultimately, the power of absence lies in its ability to create space for transformation. It is a process of detachment, not from others, but from the roles and expectations that bind us. In the silence of our absence, we are free to rediscover ourselves and to step into the fullness of who we are meant to be. This process of individuation is not always easy, but it is necessary for our growth, and in the end, our absence is not a permanent separation, but a step toward a deeper connection with ourselves, with others, and with the world around us. In absence, we find presence. In silence, we hear the voice of our true self. In withdrawal, we come to understand who we truly are. And in that understanding, we become more than we ever could have been by simply conforming to the demands of the world around us. Our absence is not a void, but a space filled with possibility, waiting to be explored. Absence, when considered from the perspective of transformation, is not simply the act of withdrawing from others, but rather an invitation to embark on a journey of deep self-discovery and growth. Transformation, particularly the kind that leads to greater personal fulfillment and understanding, often arises not from comfort or familiarity, but from moments of disruption, rupture, or loss. Just as the mythological hero must leave the known world behind to embark on an adventure into the unknown, so too does the individual who steps away from the roles and expectations of others create the space for profound transformation. In both cases, absence is not just a withdrawal, it is a necessary prelude to evolution, a necessary condition for change, and a powerful act that sets the stage for what is to come. When we speak of absence as a catalyst for transformation, it is important to understand that transformation is not just about changing external circumstances. It is a deep internal process that occurs when we are forced to confront parts of ourselves that we may have been avoiding or neglecting. Transformation requires a break from the ordinary, from the routine, from what is comfortable and predictable. The familiar world we live in, filled with its patterns and expectations, offers little room for growth. In order to change, we must step into uncertainty, into the unknown, just as the hero must leave home and venture into unfamiliar lands. This journey is filled with challenges, obstacles, and trials, but it is also filled with opportunities for growth and self-discovery. It is only when we are faced with the unknown that we can truly begin to uncover who we are beneath the surface of our daily lives, beneath the roles we play, and beneath the expectations of others. Absence plays a pivotal role in this process. When we choose to step away from the demands of the world around us, we disrupt the status quo. We create a space that is neither filled with the distractions of external demands nor shaped by the expectations others have placed upon us. It is in this space that we can begin to hear our own voice, to confront the parts of ourselves that we have ignored, and to embrace the process of transformation. Without absence, there is no room for the kind of inner exploration that leads to real change. When we remain constantly engaged with the outside world, we remain tethered to a version of ourselves that is shaped by others' projections and desires. It is only in the act of withdrawal that we can begin to redefine ourselves, to reshape our identity, and to pursue the transformation that is waiting for us on the other side of our own absence. Just as the hero in mythology is called to embark on a journey into the unknown, so too are we called to venture into the depths of our own unconscious, to confront our fears, insecurities, and unexamined desires. Transformation, after all, requires an encounter with our own shadows, the parts of ourselves that we repress or deny. These shadow aspects of the self are often difficult to face because they represent the parts of our psyche that we find uncomfortable or unsettling. However, it is only through confronting these aspects that we can integrate them into our conscious selves and achieve the wholeness that transformation demands. The process of encountering and integrating the shadow is in many ways the heart of transformation. It requires that we face the uncomfortable truths about ourselves and embrace them rather than turning away from them. Absence creates the conditions for this confrontation. By stepping away from the world, from our relationships, from our social roles, we are left with only ourselves. It is in this solitude that we are forced to reckon with the parts of ourselves that we have been avoiding. Without the distractions and the projections of others, we are left alone with our own thoughts, fears, and desires. This solitude can be uncomfortable, even painful, but it is also where the deepest transformations occur. In the silence of absence, we are given the opportunity to see ourselves more clearly, to understand ourselves on a deeper level, and to begin the process of personal evolution. This journey into the unknown, the process of transformation through absence, is not a solitary endeavor in the strictest sense. Just as the hero's journey involves encounters with mentors, allies, and adversaries, so too does the journey of transformation involve interactions with others. However, these interactions are not shaped by the usual patterns of dependency, projection, or external validation. Instead, they are opportunities for growth and insight. When we step away from the demands of others, we create the space for others to grow as well. Our absence challenges them to confront their own emotional dependencies, to question their own patterns, and to embark on their own journey of self-discovery. The absence of one person in a relationship, for example, can force the other person to confront their own emotional voids, to examine the ways in which they have relied on the other person for comfort, validation, or security. This absence can serve as a wake-up call, an invitation to face the parts of themselves that they have been neglecting. Just as we are called to embark on a journey of transformation when we step away, so too are others given the opportunity to face their own transformation. Our absence forces them to reckon with their own emotional growth and to become more self-reliant. This is not to say that absence is always easy or free from pain. On the contrary, it can be incredibly difficult to face the discomfort that comes with the absence of someone we rely on. However, it is precisely this discomfort that creates the conditions for growth. When we are forced to face our emotional dependencies and projections, we are given the opportunity to evolve into more whole and self-sufficient individuals. Transformation through absence also requires that we confront the deeper questions of meaning and purpose in our lives. Often we are so caught up in the daily demands of life that we lose sight of what truly matters to us. We become absorbed in the roles we play and the expectations placed upon us, and we forget to ask ourselves the fundamental questions: who am I? What do I want? What is my purpose? Absence provides the space to ask these questions and to explore the answers. When we remove ourselves from the external pressures and distractions of the world, we are given the opportunity to reflect on our own values, our own desires, and our own purpose. This process of self-reflection is essential to transformation. It is only when we confront these deeper questions that we can begin to create a life that is truly aligned with our authentic selves. Without absence, we remain stuck in the superficialities of daily life, unaware of the deeper currents that guide us toward growth and transformation. Absence also forces us to develop a new relationship with time. In the busyness of life, we often feel as though we are running out of time, that we must keep moving forward in order to achieve our goals, meet our obligations, and fulfill the expectations of others. But when we step away from the constant demands of life, we are able to reframe our relationship with time. We realize that transformation does not happen in a linear fashion, nor does it occur according to a prescribed timetable. Transformation happens in its own time, often when we least expect it. Absence allows us to slow down, to give ourselves the space and patience to undergo the deep internal changes that are necessary for growth. Ultimately, the process of transformation through absence is a process of self-liberation. It is the act of breaking free from the patterns, expectations, and roles that have defined us up until this point. It is the opportunity to create a new authentic self, one that is not shaped by external forces, but by our own inner truth. Absence creates the conditions for this liberation by providing the space necessary for deep self-reflection and transformation. It is a powerful tool for change, not just for ourselves, but for others as well. Just as the hero's journey leads to the hero's transformation, so too does the journey of absence lead to the transformation of both the individual who steps away and the people who are left behind. Absence, then, is not an end, but a beginning of a deeper journey into the self, and ultimately a journey toward a more authentic, fulfilled, and transformed existence. Our presence and absence are not merely physical states. They are powerful forces that shape the emotional and psychological environments around us. In the same way that a person's presence can leave an imprint on a room, a community, or an individual's life, so too does their absence create ripples that affect the collective unconscious in profound ways. The idea that our absence can influence those around us, often more deeply than our presence, reveals the complex dynamics between self and others. It calls attention to the powerful, often unseen, ways in which our interactions, or lack thereof, touch the lives of those we encounter. By withdrawing, we not only affect the people with whom we have direct relationships, but also leave behind an echo, a space that others must learn to navigate. This dynamic is part of the invisible framework that connects us to the collective psyche, where every action, whether an act of presence or absence, resonates beyond the immediate impact. The unconscious is a realm that encompasses much of our behavior, beliefs and motivations. It is often defined by the things we are unaware of, the thoughts, emotions and experiences that are buried deep beneath our conscious awareness. These unconscious elements shape the way we perceive ourselves and world, influencing our actions, decisions and relationships in subtle yet powerful ways. When we are present in someone's life, whether through direct interaction or just our mere existence, we leave an imprint on their unconscious mind. This imprint is not always immediately recognized, and it is often not consciously acknowledged. However, the effect is real. Our presence in the lives of others can be a source of comfort, anxiety, joy, or even discomfort, depending on the nature of the relationship and the psychological dynamics at play. When we leave, however, something shifts in the psychic landscape. Our absence creates a void, a space that is felt in a way that is not always easy to articulate. This absence is not just the simple physical absence of being somewhere else. It is a psychological absence, a removal of a particular energy, a disturbance in the patterns of connection that had been established. People may not immediately recognize the depth of the impact, but the void that we leave behind can stir emotions, provoke thoughts, and force others to confront parts of themselves that they may have been avoiding. The unconscious mind, which thrives on patterns, seeks to fill that void with something else, often confronting unresolved feelings or projections that have been attributed to us. In this way, our absence can bring forth aspects of a person's psyche that were previously hidden or neglected. The dynamics of absence and presence are particularly potent in close relationships, whether familial, romantic, or professional, because these are the connections where projections are most likely to occur. Projections are unconscious processes where we attribute our own internal thoughts, emotions, or traits to someone else. In relationships, we often project our desires, fears, and needs onto others, seeing them not as they truly are, but as we imagine them to be. This is especially true in relationships where emotional dependence is at play, as individuals begin to rely on the presence of another to fulfill their emotional needs. In such cases, the person who has been the focus of projection becomes a mirror for the unconscious elements of the other person's psyche. They may symbolize safety, love, conflict, depending on the dynamics of the relationship. When we withdraw from such relationships, whether intentionally or not, the projection that we have held becomes disrupted. Our absence forces the person who has been projecting onto us to confront their own inner world, to face the parts of themselves that they have been projecting onto us. Without our presence, the projected feelings and images can no longer be externalized, and they are forced to look inward. This can be a painful process, as it may involve facing unresolved wounds, unmet needs, or repressed emotions. However, it is also an essential part of the journey towards self-awareness and personal growth. Without the catalyst of our absence, these projections would likely remain hidden, continuing to distort the relationship and prevent genuine self-understanding. In this way, absence becomes a tool for the other person's psychological development. Beyond the immediate relationships we have, our absence can also have an effect on the broader collective unconscious. Each person's psyche is interconnected with others, and the absence of one person can create a ripple effect, altering the emotional fabric of the larger group. This is particularly true in communities, organizations, or social networks where individuals have specific roles and functions. Each person contributes something unique to the dynamic of the group, whether consciously or unconsciously. When someone steps away or withdraws from the group, it creates a shift, a disturbance that reverberates through the collective consciousness of the group. It is not just the absence of the individual that is felt, but the loss of their energy, their influence, their presence. The collective unconscious, which holds the shared emotional and psychological life of a group, becomes aware of the void left behind, and the group must adjust to the new reality. This adjustment process can provoke a variety of emotions within the group: grief, anxiety, confusion, or even resentment, as they attempt to fill the gap that has been created. The absence of one person can also catalyze a re-evaluation of the dynamics that existed before. Relationships, whether personal or professional, are often based on certain patterns and roles. These roles, while sometimes unspoken, are deeply ingrained in the fabric of the group. When one person steps away, the roles within the group may become more fluid, or new roles may emerge to take their place. This shift can force others within the group to confront their own feelings of dependency, need, and attachment. Just as individuals may project their unconscious desires onto one person, so too can the group project collective needs onto a single individual. The absence of that person may bring to the surface unacknowledged group dynamics, unresolved conflicts, or emotional dependencies that were previously hidden beneath the surface. Absence also has a way of making others more aware of the interconnections between themselves and others. When we are present, it is easy to take our relationships for granted, to assume that they will always be there and that we will always be able to rely on them. However, when we are absent, others are forced to confront the fragility of these connections. The absence becomes a reminder of the impermanence of all things, a jarring realization that nothing is permanent and that even the most established relationships can be disrupted. This awareness can lead to a deeper appreciation for the people in our lives, as others are forced to recognize the value of our presence once it is no longer there. In some cases, absence can lead to reconciliation, as individuals come to understand the importance of a relationship that they may have taken for granted. The psychological effects of absence are not limited to those who are directly impacted by the loss of our presence. The absence of one person can also provoke a deeper introspection in others, forcing them to examine their own feelings and behaviors. For example, when someone leaves a group or relationship, the others involved may be prompted to reflect on the nature of their own connection to that person. What did they rely on that individual for? What aspects of themselves did they project onto them? The absence creates a space for these questions to arise, and this process of self-examination can lead to deeper self-awareness. In some cases, it may even lead to the resolution of long-standing psychological issues or emotional blockages. The absence acts as a mirror, reflecting the unconscious processes that have been at play in the relationship. Finally, it is important to recognize that absence in this sense is not a permanent condition. It is rather a temporary withdrawal that creates the necessary conditions for growth, transformation, and reflection. The absence of one person can lead to the awakening of others, forcing them to confront aspects of themselves they may have ignored or repressed. This is not to say that absence is always easy or without pain. On the contrary, it can be an intensely emotional experience, as it disrupts established patterns and forces individuals to confront their own vulnerabilities. However, it is through this disruption that growth occurs. Absence, like silence, has a way of revealing what is usually hidden, of bringing to the surface the unconscious dynamics that govern our relationships and interactions. It creates a space for transformation, both for the individual who steps away and for those who are left behind. In conclusion, the power of our presence and absence goes far beyond the immediate and the visible. Both our existence and our withdrawal from the world leave profound imprints on the lives of those around us, often in ways we cannot fully grasp or anticipate. When we choose to make others suffer our absence, we create a space that forces not only a confrontation with their own emotional dependencies and projections, but also provides the necessary environment for introspection, growth, and transformation. Through absence, we disrupt the established dynamics, encouraging a shift that promotes individuation and deeper self-understanding, both for ourselves and for others. Absence in its truest form is not a mere act of physical withdrawal, but a psychological tool, an opportunity to break free from the constraints of external expectations and self-limiting patterns. It is the fertile ground in which growth and evolution can take place, allowing us to reclaim our own sense of self and encouraging those around us to do the same. The silent void left in our wake often speaks louder than our presence, calling for a deeper reflection of our identity, our rules, and our relationships. Ultimately, absence is not a passive act, but an intentional choice that catalyzes change and self-discovery. It forces a confrontation with both the visible and invisible forces that govern our lives, shaping who we are and how we connect with the world. Through absence, we are given the chance to explore the depths of our inner worlds and, in doing so, empower others to do the same. And in this mutual transformation, we find that absence is not truly a separation, but a deeper invitation to connection, authenticity, and personal evolution.